Hi, my name is Anthony. I'm a 29-year-old college student, and I'm currently in Vietnam getting ready to begin my journey across the planet. Here's my story. I'm an undergraduate student studying engineering physics and clinical psychology. I've always had an interest in physics, especially the ones that deal with the stars. However, in my situation, star studying isn't very practical, as unfortunate as it is. As for psychology, I've been interested in cognitive processes since I was a young child. My aunt has an advanced form of cerebral palsy, and it sparked my interest when I was around 4 or 5. Anyway, I'm out in Vietnam completing coursework as required and trying to get the initialization of Coast to Coast completed. For those of you already beginning to wonder, no, I didn't gamble my chance of success on YouTube video making. I moved to Hanoi with a business license, and I'm working with a few different companies in the hopes of developing my business into a large-scale industry. Specifically, I work in H&S, or hardware and software. The H&S is meant to better increase GPS mapping for weather, geographics, telemetric, and spectroscopic capabilities by creating geomagnetic resonance fields known as tesseracts. As a brain surgeon, the difference between a millimeter is the difference between you remembering your child, waking up, or walking, and the difference between a few days is whether or not you see your child again. It's a lot to say the least. However, the end goal is to save lives, so if it saves one life, it's a great success. Even if I'm 65 when it's completed. If one person survives because of it then it's a win-win. It's something similar to Mr. Musk's Neuralink, however, the way the system is designed allows for it to self-mirror, so it can work for everyone without failure. I'll be explaining it more in depth as time progresses, however, for right now, the goal is to develop a software that measures magnetic fields on a global level to allow for specific environments to analyze human biological states. This would allow for the software and hardware to detect a cancer in a fetus 30 years before the cancer occurs, basically at birth. The computer who will house the software's name is telos, originating from Greek terminology meaning the final end to a natural cause. I have around 11,000 lines of code already personally developed, and it should be near ready to start alpha phase before I leave for coast to coast. It's stressful, and something like this has taken me years to develop. This goes further than just likes on a video or cool music with some Muay Thai. It's best to keep that in the back of your mind for the duration of this. So, a computer and coast to coast. How do these two things even remotely match up in reasoning for it to be considered as something normal? Well, they don't. And that's why it's a good opportunity to culminate secondary awareness to training multiple variation. What I mean when I say that is, there's a certain cap limit of understanding a person receives while learning under the supervision of a teacher or proctor. And the only way to actually progress in real understanding is by doing it. I can watch a war movie 10 times, that doesn't make me a warrior. Learning how the body progresses under stressful environments and how the mind begins complex understandings can only occur while in direct relation to the environment. Yes, Aruba can look nice, but until you're there, you don't actually know that. That's rhetorical, though. Of course, Aruba is beautiful. It's situated in the heart of the Caribbean, just far enough away not to be the US and just close enough to make it a nice flight. The further away the location is, and the less it's known about it, makes it harder for the brain to understand what it actually is or where you actually are. It's partially why I'm here. Vietnam is, by definition, a deserted jungle. It has an extremely high rain frequency with the O2 density and humidity having physical effects on the body. It makes it a great training site. As for the fauna, Vietnam houses some of the most venomous reptiles on the planet, and the ocean is no different. The terrain alone is enough to put anyone down, whether it's the mountains or landmines, neither is something to take careless. 13% is classified as desert, 18% is covered in landmines, 30% is considered dense rainforest with unpassable mountain terrain. All of it screams stay away, making it probably justifiable to use as training grounds. A lot of this is distressed by subconscious and allow me to grow in ways that are impossible from any other dynamic. That goes for both coast to coast and Vietnam. It's natural input and output, so a journey like this allows for fluid understanding to occur in the form of fear mitigation. Analyzing assessment and analysis allows for an estimation to occur, and when completed, any failure offsets the course, dysregulating the ability from proper information occurring in the form of learning. Therefore, a lot of this is to understand stress management and danger analysis while in an environment constituted as a complete loss. What I mean by constitutional loss is that I'm in a new environment, one which I've never resided in. I don't have a residence, my monthly income is drastically less than it should be, and the environment is not suited for my physique. All of that's considered negative, therefore, constitutionally, it's a loss, making the time here considered as a constitutional loss. No, I didn't lose, but I'm in a state of losing, making the training here almost perfect. I've even noticed a small decline in my work performance. It has something to do with what we'll get into later in later videos. But anyway, the plan. The idea is in its infancy. However, I have a foundation of information already available. The 15 months of prep is just to get to the nitty-gritty. A full trip is to take around 257 days and 256 nights to complete. Think of it like a global triathlon, except there's going to be a 35 to 49 kilogram ruck and run for around 8,000 kilometers, a bicycle with the same weight for around 13,000, and a rowboat for around 14,000 kilometers. Those three factors is why every single aspect needs to be completed so concisely. You can think of it like the scalpel of a doctor. One small mistake can generate catastrophic failure. Coast to Coast is set to start in February of 2027 in San Diego, South California. This will be known as the Coast, or the start to Checkpoint 1, ending in the Hudson Bay of New York City. Checkpoint 2 will be an open ocean row from New York City to Le Havre in northern France. Checkpoint 3 is a weighted foot march known as a ruck, and it'll start in northern France, ending in eastern Ukraine. Checkpoint 4 will be a cycle and run from East Russia through Kazakhstan, Mongolia, and China. There will also be 2 swims conducted once I reach the eastern coast of Russia. Checkpoint 5 will be a run through Hokkaido, the northern island of Japan, and Checkpoint 6 will be a road through the Pacific to Hawaii, then back to San Diego, making it coast to coast. My challenge here as a kicker: at each checkpoint, I lose something. I don't gain something. For example, half of the trip is going to be conducted dark. It's called Rorschaching. I'm putting my mind in a 50-50 redundancy and changing the point of view just slightly to allow my mind to resituate its focus over a long duration of metrics. Time, distance, location, and temperature all play a part, allowing for my mind to dilate its focus based on specific environmental factors and vectors which affect my subcortical nervous system. The Rorschach test is meant to develop and rationalize thought patterns and find underlying disorders, which a lot of this has to do with. The way the body reacts to different environments and ecosystems are generically required for complex understanding, so yes, by watching this you will learn something. Once I reach Mongolia, I lose satellite positioning, and that's about all I can say right now without making it too complex. Over the next 2 to 3 weeks, there'll be more in-depth explanations of each checkpoint. I felt as though making an in-depth video for the first was a bit too much, and my editing and videography is not very good, as you can tell. So I thought it would be best to hold my excitement and wait until I have at least some formal inoculation of video editing without releasing too much information. A lot of time spent here in Vietnam will just be getting specifics completed. All of this is going to require intense planning to make sure all of the target points are set up correctly for each corresponding checkpoint. Without proper understanding of distance metrics in terms of distance per day or calorie and hydration needs, each day will be more and more dangerous. If I miss one day on the checkpoints, it will domino itself and ultimately lead to a large amount of stress in each of the following resupply points. If I'm off by one day for each resupply point, I'll either need to change every single supply point or suffer a complex redundancy in the form of plus 1 day for every single resupply point I get to and get to thereafter. If there's 15 resupply points and I'm off by 1 day on resupply point 1, that's 2 weeks of water walking in the middle of a foreign country where I most likely don't speak the language. And that isn't even how it would work. That's just assuming 1 day is off. 1 becomes 2, 2 becomes 4, 4, 8. Now I'm 30 days away from my next meal. Just as an example, during open ocean swims, many swimmers will gain 10 to 15 pounds to increase buoyancy. I'll be 20 to 30 pounds lighter. If I miss my resupply points, I'll be even lighter than that. I'll have fins on, but even then, the second swim is 42.5 kilometers. So it'd be a hay in the needle stack. For the next 8 months, I'll be working on advancing my stamina a bit more and getting my financials to baseline. Most of my time will be spent working on business development and trying to teach you guys tech, fitness, or whatever else it is that I can. And I do have my personal training license, so please feel free to shoot me any questions if you need help with dieting, muscle development, or just have any general inquiry about weight loss or mass gain. The final 6 months of the project are to be fund allocation, location mapping, time analysis, and checkpoint setups for rest, refill, and recovery. Unfortunately, following my arrival to Vietnam, I suffered a complex fracture in my right clavicle, known as a collarbone. In lieu of that, I decided to wait a few months to post this. I determined it a bit safer considering the bone wasn't fully healed. It's now February and I still haven't fully recovered, however, my gross mobility is around 80%. I had a clavicle plate and screws mounted to the fracture. However, it's not good to begin high tempo training within 3 months of procedure. Mainly, it's because of muscle redevelopment and neurological autonomy. Heavy lifting and rucking would ultimately fry the nerve endings of my shoulder, which can lead to significant alterations in my cognitive processing, while on long duration movements such as this one. I have a tendency to go overboard, and if I posted in November, it most likely would have caused some form of mishap in the future. I'm now about 4 months off schedule. However, I don't really think that it's impossible to start this 4 months late. It still gives me 365 days to get ready, and my body's pretty much physically attuned for it already. It just comes down to being able to get the balance down on the cycle and a little bit more advancement training just for the long duration. I can adequately assume at this point that I should be good to go to start around the world in February of 2027. However, I did give myself a 2 month leeway in the event that I don't have the ability to start next year. Now, worst case scenario, I can always start in March or April. However, I want to give myself enough time to make it to the swim without it being under 50 degrees. I'd also like to dodge the eastern South American vortex current, which is responsible for major hurricanes. That pretty much does it for video 1, so I'll see you in the next video. Thanks, guys. Peace.